Welcome back to another episode of the Entrepreneurial Family Man. I'm Chris Niemeyer. We've got Jamie Slingerland, Michael McGreevy, and Chris McCluskey here today. We are just excited. This is actually the first of a two-part series that we want to share, teaching your kids entrepreneurship, teaching your kids how to thrive in this world that they're already a part of. We're going to break it down into two episodes to really just focus and dive deep on a couple awesome points here. And I'd be remiss if I didn't remind you to jump into our Facebook group. There's a private Facebook group for EFM. There's constantly conversation going about these particular episodes and topics. So visit efmlife.com. There's a link to the Facebook right there on the homepage. Jump in and be part of this conversation. So gentlemen, we're entrepreneurs, we're business leaders, but we love our family. We want to lead our wives and our kids because they're what's most important to us. And that's why we're here. That's why we're talking today. So let's just dive into this topic of teaching kids about this world they live in, about the entrepreneurship that we're part of, and how that works. So when you approach personal development in your kids, what does that look like? Chris, when you talk about raising many kids out there on the farm, but you have these online businesses that you're running, what's it look like as you have explored entrepreneurship and business with them, even from an early age?
I had what I would consider by most any measure the most idyllic kind of a childhood that any kid could ask for, just really rock solid in almost any way. But I'm qualifying by saying almost because when I got out into the adult business world, I had been educated to make good grades in school so that you could get into a good college, so that you could make good grades in school again and get into a good job. And then you could do a good job in your good job so you could get a good promotion and kind of that whole thing. And I was walking in lockstep on it, and I was realizing, man, somewhere along the lines as I look around at the world, there's people doing things differently than the way I'm doing them in the marketplace. And they're called entrepreneurs. But I don't know what it is that they somehow got that I didn't. So it's not that I was slamming my parents. It was just a constant, you could ask my wife, it was a drumbeat in my head. What did I miss? What was the message that some others got that I didn't? And that is exactly what I have, in trying to find the answers to that question, it's what I've tried to instill in our kids, is to provide for them a mindset, a framework through which to view the world, and ways to think about self and then to choose to interact in that world that are entrepreneurial in their very orientation. It becomes something that, as they say so often, is more caught than taught. Now, certainly there's things you just sit down and teach them certain things, but much of it has to do with a way of living life and approaching income generation and managing time and seeing opportunity and assessing and all those kind of things. That's more a way of being than just what's doing. And you integrate it into your whole approach to parenting.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've talked about this on other episodes, that whole idea of more is caught than is taught. I think the default would be is we're going to schedule something, right? To have like an hour conversation where you're teaching your kids business or doing something with personal growth. Kind of what we've stumbled upon is that this isn't something you compartmentalize and put in a silo where you do it over here as like a homeschool curriculum. We're thinking that we live life openly and our kids are watching, and some of the stuff they just kind of absorb. I think McGreevy was talking earlier about it's like the osmosis thing, right?
Well, yeah. I think about how the greatest things that I've learned in my life have come through walking through real life situations. And to think that we're going to sit our kids down and talk at them and think that that's going to seep into who they are and really make lasting development in their lives, I don't buy that. So when I think about it, I'm like, okay, how can I bring my kids into life, what's actually happening on a day-to-day basis, and then have these conversations around them if there's any confusion or if there needs to be more clarification there.
Yeah, I like that. Let's dig deep into that right now. So what does it look like when we're talking about and living this business life? Again, you said this isn't something we just sit them down for an hour once a week and talk business. Actually, funny, I just remember this funny story. So we started, there's like a lemonade to something curriculum for young entrepreneurs that we homeschool through. And we started that. And, I read the quick parent teacher, guideline. And then we walked to a coffee shop about a mile away with the boys, and where we're going to sit down and talk about all these, concepts. Mm-hmm. But we learned more on that walk. They learned more on that walk because I took just these business basic examples, of product and service and income and expense. And we just started, as we're walking by the bank, the hairstylist, the massage person, the coffee shop, we started asking them questions. Okay, so what is their business? Is it a service? Is it a product? And they kind of got some of that stuff, so that when we sat down and did the workbook, if you will, for the little first and third grader, they just got it like that because they saw visible examples along the way. And it reminds me in this topic that we're talking about of being caught, not taught. It's the whole Deuteronomy 6 that we hear of as parents. We want to lead our family well. That as they rise up, as you walk, as you go down, you're talking about your relationship with the Lord. It's not just, we're going to check you into Sunday service, and maybe if we're super Christians, we'll go on Wednesday too, and that's our church for the week, and that's it. No, it's throughout every single day, and we apply that same concept here in business. So what's worked for you guys in terms of this personal development at a young age?
You guys know that we travel all the time. We listen to music in the car, and we'll play audiobooks for the kids, stories, and then we'll do the adult stuff. If Ruthie's taking a class, or I'm taking a class, or our mastermind group is reading a book, we'll play that audio in the car. What it boils down to is we respect our kids, and we'll play stuff that they want, and then they have to be quiet and listen to stuff that we do. We're going on an 8-hour car ride, and I feel like the messages, when our kids listen to Zig Ziglar and Dan Miller and Jim Rohn and Michael McGreevy.
Yeah, baby.
No, we listen. We're watching each other's, the videos that we're doing on social media. And we're playing the stuff in our car around the house. And this is not like a thing where it's homeschool curriculum. We're playing it out loud when we're doing our dishes, and our kids are just growing up around this inspiration, around these messages. And I know it's making an impact on them because I already hear the way they answer questions, the way they think about their stuff they're doing in their life, that they're paying attention, even if they are rolling their eyes in the car when we're listening to a Dave Ramsey thing, talking about auto loans or something. Our kids are listening. So I don't think that we need to schedule this stuff. We just need to have it on all the time and just have them be around it. And they're like little sponges.
Jamie, I agree. We don't have to schedule it. In fact, we mustn't just operate on a mindset of scheduling. Sometimes it's important to schedule things so that we ensure that the big things do get addressed, but it becomes more of just a lifestyle. It's part of the philosophical and theological way in which we approach parenting, life, family. This is what we do as we're going about our day. Back when I was doing clinical work 25 years ago, I would have parents frequently come in, and they were talking about their kids, and usually, because the area that I specialized in was clinical sex therapy, they would come in saying, my adolescent is getting into some kind of sexual problem. And they would say, man, I know I needed to have talked to my kid about sex, but gosh, I can't talk to them about it. It's so uncomfortable. And I would always pause and say, oh, whoa, I get what you mean. I know what those words mean, but hear me clearly in this. You cannot not talk to your kids about sex. The question is, what messages are you sending? You are sending messages, and it may be those very messages that are why you're suddenly having this big bomb go off, because they still got the message, which in some case was, we can't talk to mom and dad about this. So they don't until they're in a mess. We are always, quote, talking to our kids about sex, about marriage, right? About the Lord, about entrepreneurship, about the handling of money, about everything. The question is, what messages are we sending? So yes, it becomes a way of doing life. And I think sometimes we also schedule because that's in alignment with our highest priorities. We got to be sure that they didn't just catch it, they really get it at a deep level. So yeah, it's both.
It's like we got to, as men, we need to take out our earbuds, like the personal development, all the stuff we're learning in our business, all the stuff we're learning about money and parenting and all this other stuff. We need to take our earbuds out and not just do this learning when we're taking a walk or we're by ourselves. Because I talk to guys all the time that are saying, like, how can I get my wife on board and have her have this hunger of personal development? And I think, living it openly is the key that I think, because it's like we all know that expression, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. As we acclimate more to this inspiration and these great ideas, the people around us can't help but be influenced.
Yeah, that's a good. I mean, hey, same example there is having your spouse listen to this podcast. Alicia started listening to this podcast. She's like, I'm catching more of the vision of what you guys are doing and excited about this life that we're living. So she's like taking tips from all of you. You know, it's great. Michael, you have younger kids right now, but you're still very focused on teaching Gunnar, especially a 3-year-old boy, some of this personal development. What's that look like in your home?
I have to be honest. Sometimes it's a little bit frustrating because I want to have these deep conversations about personal growth and all these personal growth greats and share them with them, but they're just not really in that place. So I love hearing stories from you guys about that and how you're doing it. But I found that I can do it on a very simple level sometimes. Like just not too long ago, a couple of weeks back, Gunnar was trying to do a pull-up on our towel rack in our bathroom. And if you know a 3-year-old boy, that dude was jerking on that thing and ripping on it, and the thing just pulled right out of the wall, and he fell back on his backside and was sitting there with this look on his face of, what did I just do? It just occurred to me that someone's going to have to fix this, and it's probably going to be me, and that's going to cost me time. And then I got thinking, and I thought of you guys, my entrepreneurial family man friends.
Your posse.
You're my posse. Yeah. And I thought, okay, well, this could be a moment where I could teach Gunnar something about how the world works here. And so I began to explain to him, hey, somebody's got to fix this thing, and it costs money or time to fix this. And I explained to him that that person who's going to be paying for this is him. And so he has the give, spend, save jar. And he was like, okay, well, I can just take it out of my give jar because that one's kind of a big jar. I'm like, no. You have to take that money out of your spend jar, the one that you would normally buy things that you love and that you want. He's like, oh, really? And I could see that I could feel a little bit of pain having to give me money to fix this towel bar. Now, did I charge him the going rate for a contractor? No, it was 20 cents, I think he paid me to do this, which was a pretty high percentage of his income. But still, he learned a message in that moment that there's a cost to things that you don't treat well. And that's both financial and time too. And he brings it up all the time. Every time he sees it, he tells that story. And I think it's just a little way that we've kind of brought him into some situations so he could feel that in a real world way.
That's awesome. Is he kind of scared of towel bars now? Kind of stays away from them.
He's scared of his piggy bank being emptied out, I think.
He's probably has a lighter footprint in every area of the house now because of this. This is great.
We'll get there eventually.
That's a great example, and it's a good segue to point number 2 of just sharing these real life experiences about being entrepreneurs, but just the daily living of business, of the costs of life, right? I mean, Gunnar learned at a very young age, there's a consequence, and some of that is going to be monetary in terms of making a mistake. I mean, hey, if we all would wince at having to pay out a $1,000 deductible to fix a car for a reason that we could have avoided, in a little fender bender. Same kind of concept with him. So, sharing these real life experiences with kids is so important. Jamie, you had an example recently of you and Diego buying something with a bunch of dreams about it. What's happened with that recently?
Oh man, well, we're going to Mexico in the second week of August, and so we bought this drone. It's the Maverick Spark. It's like a pretty sweet little machine. It goes like 35 miles an hour. It can go like up to a couple miles away from the house. It's got an HD camera. And like the business bought it because we're doing like some travel vlogging and, part of what we're doing here with EFM too, right? Like we're traveling with our families and doing business. And so he crashed it, just to cut to the chase here, into a brick wall because he didn't have my phone hooked up to it. So he was using like the hand controls, and
So did the brick wall win?
Yeah. So the repair, I'm waiting. Like, we got the estimate. It's like $150 to get the thing fixed. And I had to drive across town like 30 minutes. So they're going to ship it here. But so Diego right now, him and his friend Winston are like packaging up stuff for our Amazon business, cleaning it all, organizing it. And he's paying it off because he's got to fix that mistake. Just like if I crash my car into somebody else and I got to pay for it. McCluskey, you got something here. Jump on in.
Well, I love that you guys, Michael and Jamie, both just gave examples of kids learning experientially in a loving relationship with dad about some of the harsh realities of the business world and of just the world, period, that things cost money. We have to take care of things. And yet both of the examples, of course, that you gave were ones where the kids didn't really have enough forethought to know, if I do this, then this bad thing is going to happen, but I'm going to do it anyway. They were doing something that they thought was cool. Michael, you're a musclehead, man. Your kid's been watching you do pull-ups. He's like, I want to be like daddy. And that's what he does. But, on the kid-sized pull-up bar, it comes out of oh, man, right?
It's what he could reach.
Yeah, it's the one he could reach. Yeah. And Jamie, the same way. I mean, Diego so wants to be like you, and he's out there trying to do the things that Dave's doing. He wasn't being a bad kid, and he didn't know what was going on. So I love that you guys use those as teachable moments in a loving spirit that said, yeah, they're going to help replace that thing that got broken. The kids weren't taken out back of the shed and beaten. They weren't shamed for something that they did as if they needed to be because they hadn't done something in a mean-spirited manner. They didn't have to pay for it, literally forking out $150. Diego's going to be indebted to you for the next 6 months of his life paying that off or something. No. You met them on the plane that they are. Diego can help with shipping the things for the Amazon business, and so he does that. And that teaches the lesson. You didn't charge what a contractor would actually charge, Michael, to replace that towel bar. You went into his little world of a 3.5-year-old's piggy bank and said, okay, 20 cents in his world is a lot of money. And so the lessons are caught, but everything that's being caught there is taught in the spirit of fatherly love. And I didn't want our listeners to miss that, because I'll tell you what, a lot of times when I'm talking to men, they get a concept, they think, oh, yeah, I'm going to do that. And they go home. I'm going to give a quick story here to illustrate the point. Years ago, I heard a gentleman speaking at a church. He had a gift of spiritual discernment and would receive words of knowledge and such from the Lord. And he gave an illustration of being out hand washing the family van. So he had one of those big thirsty sponges, a real sponge that's got the great big holes in it, kind of odd shaped and all. And he's out there sudsing up the car, okay? And suddenly from the other side of the van, he hears this horrific screeching of like metal on metal or something. And he goes racing around the side of the van to find out what in the world's going on. And his little child is there with a lava rock in his hand. And he's just sudsing up the side of the minivan with his lava rock. The results are not quite the same ones Dad was getting on the other side. But
wow.
as he went to, of course, stop him, and intervene, and found himself churning up like all of us would. Oh my gosh, you wrecked the drone. Oh my gosh, you pulled the thing out of the wall. I'm going to have to play it. Oh my gosh, you're doing that on the van. How am I going to fix that? He said right at that moment, he got a spiritual word from the Lord that said, that is you. Yeah. And he explained that what he meant was that Father God was revealing to him at that particular moment that he thought there was some stuff he was doing spiritually in some of his discipleship of men that he thought was doing the Father's work. And he said, you're actually causing damage. You're hurting people. You got the right message, but the wrong spirit about it. So God was teaching him something as a father God to a grown man through his role as a father with his little child, saying we can so often miss that they're trying to be like us. We want to shape them to be like us. We got to be sure that we do that with the right message and the right spirit. So kudos to you, dads. You nailed it, but want to be sure our listeners catch that, right?
Yeah, that's a great example, Chris McCluskey. It kind of reminds me of that quote that you hear often quoted by St. Francis, preach the gospel at all times, and when necessary, use words. Like our actions and how we live our lives and what we do, that's what our kids are seeing and how they're shaping their view of the world. Wow, what we say, yeah, that holds weight, but man, what we do, how much does that determine how our kids are shaped?
Absolutely. I'm thinking of this back to the more is caught is taught thing. is that there's so many teachable moments that we have working from home, being here, that it's almost, let's just face it and be honest. It takes more work sometimes to involve the kids in these conversations and to bring things up and to show them. But I'm thinking, we get bills in the mail that we open, that we leave on the counter. Like, these are opportunities for us to let the kids see those things transparently, like what it costs to run a business, what it costs to run a household, how much things cost in the refrigerator. And not to, again, like what you were saying, McCluskey, we're not trying to shame them or make them feel bad if they waste something or they make a mistake. But I just remember growing up, I had friends whose parents would never share anything about like how much they made or how much the house was. And I know like our kids don't need to have all the weight of adulthood on them, but I think we can, just by being honest and not sort of keeping those conversations in private from them, sort of let them acclimate gently to being adults,
Yeah.
So that when they become 24 years old, they're not sticker shocked by the way real life is. They just sort of learn it, just like with the drinking age, right? It's like, okay, now you're an adult when you're 21 and you're able to go to the military when you're 18. Like, that's not really how it works. You don't become an adult one day. You kind of ease into it and acclimate, right?
Jamie, that concept is what I was talking about at the very beginning of today's broadcast when I said that I realized I had missed some things in the wonderful growing up that I had. And it was some of those very messages you're talking about your friend's family, like they never talked about money. We never talked about money. I had no idea how much my dad made, nor did I have any real concept of how much things cost. There was this unspoken message, but we all got it very clearly that we don't talk about money as if it was somehow bad or sinful. That was never stated overtly, but that was the result. And so we hesitated to ever ask. And boy, did I wind up with a harsh lesson from the real world once I got out and began to realize how much you had to make and all. But Chris Niemeyer, right before we got on this call, you were talking about a completely opposite approach to money and kids. So you got to put that story out here.
Yeah, man. So again, because these kids are there and, we all work from home. So they're all around. We have opportunities throughout every single day to teach them what we're doing. And so, we're packing up a moving truck tomorrow. A little tense here right now, a little bit of pressure. But, part of this, the past month has been, we've really, as a family, chosen, and we had a family meeting about this. We really wanted to downsize. We wanted to just clear out every room, purge stuff. And so we kind of made it a little bit of a game. I think I just sent this app to Michael over the weekend, but there's a little app that we have this fundometer. You can make a goal. And we had this Niemeyer selling stuff goal. Awesome. And the goal was we were going to sell our minivan. My wife is done with the minivan years, has been since day one. That's a whole another episode right there. And I wanted to get her a really nice, luxury SUV that she's wanted and had her eye on. And so we said, okay, this is probably what we're going to sell the van for. And I want to make up the difference because we own the van outright. And I want to make up that difference to buy this in cash, this SUV. And so, it's been very active. I mean, we are just selling stuff left and right and just kind of seeing that bar get bigger. That thermometer is growing, to our levels. And then we found the car. We found this SUV that she wanted. And so literally the day before, I go to the bank, I get all the cash, and I have the boys on the bed that they're counting out the money with me. Okay, counting out the stacks of cash. And I said, so here's the deal, guys. Most people don't buy a car this way. In our society these days, most people are taking out loans and all this, and most dealerships would rather you buy a car on a loan. So we counted out the stack of cash that was going to cost to buy it private party, which we did the next day. And I had some extra money left over, and I did the quick math on my phone, and I said, so I need you to count this extra money out. If we were to pay this over 5 years, I need you to count all this stack out. And they did, and it's like something clicked. They go, wow, that's a lot more money than what you could just get tomorrow, right? And just something happened in that moment of teaching them just a very basic thing of saving and investing and debt and just the extra expense of that. And again, from a 7-year-old and 9-year-old boy brain, they may have just barely scratched the surface of what that looks like and what the reality of that monetary value, but it was just an example of an opportunity that says, hey, there's something in front of us that's going on in our family. I want them to be part of this. And it was pretty cool to talk through that.
Chris, that is so awesome that your 9-year-old is learning how much a car loan actually costs. It would be amazing to hear the statistics on how many people in America have a car loan and have no idea how much it's actually costing them over the period of 5 years. I mean, that's incredible. He has such a jump on so many other people just with some basic financial training that you've given him. I love that, man.
Well, and that's just what we're talking about here is being able to just take the everyday things. Jamie mentioned going to get the mail and like opening the bills that we have. Hey guys, when I tell you to close the door, it's because this electricity bill here, it can go up, what do you do? And just talking through, this is the cost of life. And they get those examples from how we're living. So yeah, we need to do more of that. I know that I need to do more of that. Just taking those responsibilities on a daily, weekly basis to say, here's just what life is like. And sometimes even comparing, as we're talking about entrepreneurship and business versus a more traditional job. There was just an example actually last night. One of the kids wanted to play with a friend and they think the mom is off tomorrow. And I said, no, actually her schedule shifts every single week. She doesn't know what day off she's going to be because they set their schedule for her a week in advance. And so last week she was off a Tuesday, Thursday. This week it might be another day. And she just has to kind of plan for the fact she doesn't know when she's going to be off. And so I just straight up told him, I said, work for yourself. You set your own schedule. You set your own return on your investment of your schedule.
Yeah, I love these stories. Just dads talking to their kids and just being real about life. Like going to the mailbox and opening up the check. Me and Ruthie have had these conversations with our kids. Like that's been one thing that we've just felt kind of led to live this stuff transparently in front of our kids. But we also have this conversation that goes like this. This private stuff that we're sharing about our finances, that like we keep that inside our family. And I think that might have been the reason why some families, like McCluskey, what you were saying, how your dad didn't know how much your parents made. Like, if you grew up, I think my parents did a pretty good job of that. But talking about business and life, they kind of blend the two. We are leaning into this life where we blur the lines all over the place. Just such an opportunity for us to have these conversations with our kids where we can just let them know the real numbers behind things. Like Chris, I love the picture of Noah and Jesse sitting down like with those big stacks of $100 bills, just feeling the weight. Like they're probably going to be a little bit understand when you give them that look when they like spill something on the back seat after counting that money,
Hopefully, we'll see. Yeah, just been a great conversation, and just again, part one here of a 2-part series of teaching your kids entrepreneurship, taking everyday life and explaining the cost of doing business, the reality of living in this world that they're in. Even at a young age, we have the opportunity to start to frame that conversation, that discussion around how we're living and doing this. And so again, point number 1, focus on their personal development, even at a young age. Bring those audiobooks in, like Jamie said, take off your earbuds and start playing that Zig Ziglar podcast or, the EFM podcast maybe in the car when you're driving around.
Come on, right? Come on.
And then number 2, just start sharing more, share more of these real life experiences, as you go to the mail, as you go to the bank, as you're doing things, teaching them along the way. And maybe it's going to be some of those tough stories of learning the consequence and the value of money when you have to fix something or opportunities on the other end. But taking those initiatives to really pour into each of your children at this stage of life is super valuable. So think this week, what more could you do to share, to teach, and to explore and help them dream bigger dreams for their world ahead?
Thank you for listening to the Entrepreneurial Family Man Podcast. Visit efmlife.com to connect with us and others like you who are pursuing success in enterprise, family, and marriage.